Kia ora koutou, Markie here with part 2 of Markie's 20 most annoying conversational styles. Okay, now do not watch this video unless you've watched part 1, because there's a lot of context, well, not a lot of context setting, but there's a degree of context setting there. And if you have watched the other one, I don't have to do any preambles at all. I will just do a quick recap of what we talked about last time. So we did the first 10 of the list of 20. The mealy-mouthed, the black abyss, that's somebody who doesn't give you anything back. The microscope, somebody that goes into way too much detail. The competitive cat, somebody that, so that's about black catting. So somebody says they've got a black cat, you say, oh, I've got a cat that's blacker than yours. Or you just steer the conversation away from, you know, what their house is like to what your house is like. Not necessarily saying your house is better, but taking it away from what they were saying about their house. The consultant, somebody that thinks that they need to give you advice and guidance on everything and tell you what you should do. The courtroom convincer, somebody that is always trying to prove to you that what they say is true, even though it might not be that unbelievable. The recycler keeps on saying the same stuff over and over. The inquisitor, you know, so it feels like a really intense interrogation rather than a conversation. I didn't say last time, the nosy, you know, it can feel also like the nosy neighbour. The nosy neighbour can be a bit like that. So, you know, it can feel like somebody's just trying to invade your privacy and gather facts about you rather than, you know, anything else. Excuse me, sip of water. The unstoppable enforcer, so that's the bulldozer that I've talked about in other videos. Somebody that, you know, force of personality, drives the conversation and doesn't let anyone else get a word in edgeways, or seldom lets other people get a word in edgeways. The ever so humble, so that's somebody that sees themselves as lower status to you. They're a bit nervous talking to you, therefore they bumble and mumble, and yeah, that can be very irritating. The cheerer-upper, so somebody, this is the last one, somebody that you know, just says stupid things like, oh, it'll all come out in the wash, or never mind. So hopefully that's a whistle-stop recap. So let's get on to, where's my mouse not working? Let's get on to, what's going on here? I'm not going to be able to alter that screen. I don't know what's going wrong there. So the comedian, I put Basil Brush in brackets there. So so some of you will remember Basil Brush. I'm not sure if Basil Brush is currently on television. Basil Brush is a puppet fox. And I love Basil Brush, and has been around since probably the 60s, something like that, in different forms. He's a character, and he loves to make jokes, and he will just he sees the world as an opportunity to, everything that goes on in the world is just fodder for making jokes, from Basil Brush, which is kind of my philosophy as well. I'm a bit like, so I'm guilty of this one, and of course I am a stand-up comedian. Not done it for a little while, but that's one of the things that I do. Now, of course, you know, making jokes and things, humor in conversation is brilliant, you know, so I'm not going to try and discourage anybody from doing that. But if you do it too much, or if you do it in a way that takes away from the other person, that can be really annoying. So somebody's trying to tell you something, and you know, there's a great excuse for a little joke there, and you know, you could just come back with a joke, and it could be really funny, but it's actually it's interrupting their flow of what they're trying to tell you, and it's putting a roadblock in the conversation rather than oiling the wheels of the conversation. Sorry, I'm using all these analogies again. Can't help my little self. So yeah, I think that makes sense, doesn't it? And that's what Basil Brush does. But so Basil Brush, he was used to, I mean, I think the format's kind of changed in more recent iterations of the Basil Brush show, but he used to just kind of more or less be with a co-presenter, like a human co-presenter, and the human co-presenter would talk about sensible stuff, and Basil Brush would just make jokes about everything that he said, and so it was kind of comedy, you know, like the straight guy and the funny guy. So really, if you if you're having comedy and humor in a conversation, it's good if that is shared humor, or if it's coming from both parties, rather than, you don't want to get into that dynamic of one person being the straight person and the other person being the funny person. So that's an old kind of comedy term, the straight man or the straight guy, and nothing to do with sex. We're not talking about sexuality, and here we're not talking about heterosexual and funny. We're talking about somebody that's serious, doesn't make this. So you have two, little and large, if you remember them. God, I'm old. One person in a comedy duo would be serious all the time and wouldn't get the laughs. They basically feed the funny part of the duo, and they would get the laughs. So that was a format for a lot of comedy. It's a bit old hat now. It doesn't happen so much, but that's how it used to be. And Basil Brush was like that. I'm talking fast again. I don't know why. Slow down, Markie. Now, number 12. This is a bit of an odd one, really, a bit of an obscure one, and this comes from my monotropism, I think. The emitter/assumer. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? What's that all about? This is probably something that just bugs me. If it bugs you, let me know in the comments so I don't feel so alone. But what I find sometimes in a conversation, people will casually refer to a whole bunch of people and things and places and maybe organizations that you've got no idea who they're talking about, and they haven't introduced them. So it's like, if you're writing a play or telling a story, you introduce your characters, don't you, to the audience. And these are people that don't introduce their characters to the audience, and they just seem to have this sense that you just know everything, or they don't care. So it's almost like you're not there in a way. It's almost like they're talking to themselves, and you just happen to be listening. So they'll start to, I've been down Steve's, he's not got any better. He's still struggling with the same old issues. And I said to Charlie about it, what are we going to do with Steve? And they haven't told you who any of these people are. And you can't follow the story, or even if you can, it's like, well, why does this matter? Who are these people? Why are you telling me this? It feels like, it's disrespectful of your time. The Wild Rover, which is a lovely old folk song, which when I used to drink, I used to knock out at full volume at various times of day and night, to everyone's joy and appreciation, especially people that are trying to sleep. So Wild Rover, that's my style on this channel. Is it's kind of all over the place. Disorganized. Now I can be very organized, and I can write really good essays and written pieces. I can prepare really good speeches, but when I do YouTube videos, I like to do them on the hoof, very spontaneous, and I like to go off on tangents, and I like it when other people go off on tangents. So I quite like the Wild Rover to a degree. And as I said before, there are YouTube channels where people do this. So like Pat Brown, criminal profiler, and Andy, what's his name? I've forgotten his name now. Who does the Andy Edwards, who does the music channel. I enjoy that, but it can also be annoying if it depends really. If somebody's trying to convey information and there's a serious need to take in that information, it does help if somebody's giving you it in an order. Such an order that you can follow. If somebody is going all over the place and you can't quite follow it, it can be quite exhausting. Now this one is not uncommon among people with ADHD, which is probably why I do it. So it can be interesting, it can make for a wild, enjoyable ride, unless they're trying to convey some important information. You're trying to take it down, you're trying to learn what this person's trying to tell you, and because they're all over the place, it's very hard to organize your thoughts and take notes and imbibe that information. The status signaler. Well, everyone, the virtue signaling is a phrase that people use a lot these days, which I think is quite a useful phrase. So the status signaler, that would include virtue signaling as well. because virtue is part of, you know, so status. I'm using status in a slightly different way again. So basically, they want to signal to you that they are a good person, or an interesting person, or they want to signal to you that they might be a competitive thing. This can overlap a little bit with the competitive cat, which we looked at in the last video. But it's, you know, just basically trying to sell you a favorable picture of themselves, and usually it has the opposite effect because it backfires. People can see this miles away, and you know, and it doesn't feel good when people are doing this. So this might be somebody they're telling you that they're going on holiday to somewhere very expensive and exotic or select or special. You know, they might refer to some of their property. So showing my age, all my examples are so old. On Coronation Street there was a character called Annie Walker who was landlord of the pub, and who was a bit la-di-da, and at the time a Rover 2000 was considered a reasonably posh car, and whenever she talked about her car she would always say, my Rover 2000 is parked such and such. So she'd always, you know, throw in the you know, what her car was. So maybe today, you know, you'd say, well, my Tesla's parked around the back, or whatever. Well, I don't know about cars. I don't know what a good car is. Rolls Royce. Let's see. That's the level of knowledge about cars I've got. So name dropping would come into this. You know, you know, somebody that knows a celebrity and wants to let you know that they know that celebrity, or somebody of high status, like, you know, they know the mayor or the local MP or what have you. So hyacinth bouquet is the status, is a status signaler. Weird example of this is one night, it was after pub closing time, the streets were quite quiet. I was walking home and just bumped into this couple. No one else was around, and ended up talking. They'd just taken on a restaurant, and they started to talk about this restaurant and how, and very quickly it became apparent that they were status signalers, because they were just bigging up this restaurant, you know, just you know, trying to, you know, get across the message that this restaurant was the bee's knees. And this guy leaned into me as if he was sharing a secret, you know, conspiratorially leaned into me, and he said, you know, we're the only restaurant in town that does free refills. And he meant refills on coffee, and he sort of like he was sharing, you know, sharing some intimate thing with me. But he didn't pronounce his, some people pronounce their R's like W. So what I heard was, we're the only restaurant, and I'm a bit deaf, we're the only restaurant in town that has free weevils. So I wasn't at all impressed. And then it was, you know, the next day I think I worked it out that he was telling me it was free can't say it now, free refills. So yeah, that's a bit of a bizarre example, but that's what YouTube likes now, apparently. Everyone is sick to death of AI presentations, and they want little personal stories. However, but probably not as bizarre as that one. Okay, the yawny man or woman. So I can't even remember which film this comes from. Is it Tom Thumb? I think it's Tom Thumb. There's a yawny man that yawns a lot and sings a little song and sends everybody to sleep. So I just borrowed that. If you know where that comes from, let me know. Put that in the comments, please. The yawning. So this is just somebody that just looks bored when you're talking to them. So they might not be yawning, but they might be looking at their phone or looking at their watch or looking behind you, you know, who's walking up and down the street. Now, there can be different reasons for that, particularly if it's distractible stuff. That can be ADHD. This is kind of fairly common one for people with autism. You know, so I heard a quote from somebody once. I can't remember who it was. It was on Radio 4 years ago. And it said that we'll forgive people that bore us, but we'll never forgive people that we bore. So when people are bored or appear bored, they don't have to be bored, but they appear bored when we're talking to them. That, you know, that generally makes people feel terrible. You know, it destroys their self-esteem, makes them feel, you know, isn't nothing worse really than thinking that you know, that you're talking to someone and that they're bored. So so generally speaking, it's annoying to give off the impression that you're bored. even if you are bored. Whether you're bored or not, don't look bored. That's that one. One trick pony. Now this is very much an autism thing. It's not exclusive to autism, but we have a special interest, one topic of conversation that you like to talk about, and that's all you talk about. And any other conversation, you will twist, divert the conversation back to your special interest. So that's a common one. Now, the secret here maybe is, well, maybe you need to find more friends that share the same interest and you can both enjoy these conversations. But it's not good to and also some special interests are more universal than others, aren't they? And some are more niche and obscure. So for example, some people will talk about, you know, their work, or, you know, their profession, and their profession may be super specialized to the extent that if you're not in that profession, you won't have the first clue what they're talking about. And that often is, you know, is something that I've experienced, people going into technical jargon, and you know, and they just lost me. It's like there's no point really having a conversation, because they could be just reading out their, you know, reading out the phone book. But that's an old metaphor as well, isn't it? I'm too old. I probably need to be shot, don't I? The kidnapper. So the kidnapper. I was going to say the hijacker, I think. So this is where somebody engages you in conversation and they don't want to let you go, you know, even though, you know, you might have to be somewhere, or even though you might be doing the yawny man. they will do everything they can to keep you locked into the conversation and make it very hard for you to make your exit and disappear. Okay, this can be associated with autism and neurodivergence. It can also be associated with what I like to call psychic vampirism, and I've done a video on that, so check out psychic vampirism. But yeah, so the other word that people use for this that I've heard is buttonholing. Well, I don't think that's a phrase that's used much these days, but yeah, I've called him the kidnapper in this instance. Can't be firing through this, aren't we? I'm got myself on a bit of a I think I have too much coffee. So you can slow down the volume, slow down the speed of YouTube videos, don't you? So you might want to play me on lower speed. The reluctant indulger. So that's a bit of a clunky one, but I couldn't think of anything better. So this is the kind of person that when you're talking to them, they give off the impression that they're doing you a favor, and they'd much rather be somewhere else or talking to someone else. And these are the kind of people that if you invite them to a party, they usually can't come because they've got another party to go to. You know, and even if you have parties quite often, they'll always have another party. And if they do come to your party, they'll pop in for half an hour, and then they'll say, right, I've got to go because I've got another party to go to. Go off to that. So yeah, people that just give you the impression that, you know, they'd much rather be talking to your. So again, we're going back to that status that we talked about in the previous video. They were generally people that see themselves as higher status than you, and they don't want to waste too much time on you because you're lower status. And you know, it's not a nice feeling really. The best thing if you know somebody like that is, you know, just give them a wide berth, you know, maybe do the same thing to them. The recruiting sergeant. Okay, so that's a bit of a historical reference. So, you know, like back in the 18th century, you know, it would always be a sergeant, well, probably at other times as well as the 18th century. I always think of it as an 18th century thing. An army sergeant would go around maybe with a couple of one or two private soldiers, would go around the country from town to town and kind of set up a bit of a stall in a market square and say, you know, do a bit of a speech and say, you know, listen, young men, army life's the life for you. And so just somebody that's always trying to get you to do something. It might be to buy something or to support one of their events or anything really. It might be they want to get you in their church. It might be they want to get you to come to their bridge club. It might be, you know, a different thing each time. It might be that they're always collecting for charity, which is all good and great, but they always want something. and they'll always turn the conversation away from, you know, the natural flow that would, you know, that you might hope would be there in the conversation, to their agenda, and basically they want something from you. They might be psychic vampires as well, but not necessarily. And then finally, the histrionic. So I'm using a clinical term here for the final one. I've managed to avoid that so far. Obviously, I'm a psychotherapist, so I do use clinical terms. So there's such a thing as histrionic personality disorder. So the histrionic person is somebody who is part of what they call cluster B, the cluster B of personality disorders. So obviously, you can be histrionic without having the personality disorder. The personality disorder is like a high level of the histrionic trait. So somebody that's histrionic will be, colloquially, is what people call the drama queen. Okay, so somebody who's histrionic will always have some crisis, or, you know, recently had some, you know, extreme emotive experience. Whenever they'll say, you'll never guess what just happened to me. Sometimes they're angry. They're like the warrior type. They're just like, I said to him, and I sorted him out, and I did this and I did that. So, but more often they're kind of, it's kind of like victim stuff. So high emotion, high drama, and it's a means of gaining attention. So in psychology, a lot of people misplace the idea of attention seeking, where it doesn't belong. So when people attempt suicide and things like that, that's not attention seeking. Okay, the histrionic behaviors are attention seeking. You know, so attention seeking, most problematic behaviors that people do, you know, like self-harm and or drug use or crime or whatever, they're not usually attention seeking. They can be for a whole bunch of reasons, but the histrionic, you know, that is something in psychology where there's an element of attention seeking, and this can also coincide with the psychic vampire, which sounds weird and dramatic, but check out my video on that anyway. So there we go. So I rattled through that one. Thought that was going to be longer. So what do you think of these? So just a reminder, I will put these titles in the description box, so you don't have to look at the jazzy screen. And again, I'm interested in what you think maybe you do, that maybe you wish you didn't, or maybe you do it and you like doing it and you've got good reasons for doing it, or people in your life have done this to you and you don't like it. I'd be interested in any of that. I'm going to have a conversation. So there you go. You'll just slowly scroll through the top 20 just to refresh your memory if you don't want to go into the description box. So yeah, let's have a chat in the comments. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Rangimarie.